free speech allows for people to think different things that may be wrong. It is a right to be misinformed. But there are limits to that. If there's a fire alarm, you know there is a fire, you've seen it, you have data, you saw it with your own damn eyes, you run into the next room, fire alarm, there's a dude screaming, no, there's no fire, everyone stay inside the building, there's no fire. And you know that is untrue. What do?
Welcome back, everyone, on this new episode of Let's Talk AI. I'm super happy today to be with Marijn. Marijn, how are you doing?
Hey, man, good to be here. I saw you freak out for like 5 minutes trying to get the podcast running, and that was a lovely sight to behold.
Yes, and I hope I said your name correctly. I know I'm close, but I know I'm missing the 5% correctness that I would need to do it perfectly.
After
Maybe I'll
years
ask
of
you.
working internationally with Americans, French, and Indians who pronounce my name as Marijn, Marijn, or whatever, I just respond to "Hey you" there. So
Hey.
calling me "Hey you" is fine. Call me whatever you like, honey.
Hey, you. Okay, love it. So my first question. So first of all, I'm super happy to have you on the show. I've been following you on LinkedIn for some time. And there is a lot of things to discuss around your background, your career, your vision. So maybe if you don't mind doing a very brief description of yourself, like how would you present yourself? Just curious to hear it from you.
Hi, I'm Marijn Markus, a Dutch guy that talks a lot about data ethics and intelligence and AI. My stuff started 10 years ago. My background is in social science, sociology, bit of criminology, and statistics. And back then, all of that was not sexy. And my dad was wondering, what the heck are you going to do with your life, man? Because who writes about misinformation and this data thing? Computers, who does that? Go learn a real trade like economics and law or something. So 10 years later, Dad, the ball started rolling with MH17 when that got shot down 10 years ago, and I was suddenly writing a lot about misinformation because my own country, the Netherlands, lost almost 200 people back then. I modeled Ebola back in the day for Red Cross and Gyro 555. I graduated on crime forecasting or crime analysis in Rotterdam for the police over here. Then Capgemini hired me because they said, wow, that's cool, that's data science. And I said yes, because I needed a damn job, because suddenly statistics, not sexy, was data science, which is sexy. And I did a master's in big data and policy analysis back when big data was a thing. Now big data. Now back then you needed clusters of servers. Now you can fit all of that on your single laptop. So big data is dead, by the way. And then 2 years after, because I did refugee research, I got really into natural language processing and document processing and stuff. Worked some with finance, realized that banks have really good coffee. Now I mainly run innovation projects at Capgemini, my current job, because they started calling all of our data stuff AI, and now we're sexy as heck.
Let's go. Awesome. Okay, amazing background. I would like to just take the time, if possible, to go back on those different moments, and maybe if you can share some inside key lessons about the journey. So a lot of hype, a lot of different things to be covered on, but maybe you can guide us through the core moments where you've learned a few things that drive you, and now you're at Capgemini, and maybe and then I'll do a follow up on what you're currently doing at Capgemini and so on.
So one of the key defining moments in my career was in 2014-15 during the Ebola pandemic. If you remember, the world's biggest pandemic back then, we learned from it, would never be that bad again. And I was doing stupid Excel modeling back then. I was an intern on how much finances were spent on what island in the Philippines to help people after the Haiyan flood. Then Ebola happened, and suddenly I was using data to map the spread of that pandemic across Western Africa, Sierra Leone and stuff. And I was making maps, charts of that with some version export from R to shape files and do stuff in Illustrator. But
Mm-hmm.
one of those maps was used on the Dutch news, and we used that for fundraising. We raised, what was it, 10.6 million euros to send emergency aid over to West Africa in those 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was dozens, if not hundreds, of people giving it their all in my country to help raise funds to help save lives in that country. But for me, that was the point in my life that I realized that the stuff I do with computers can actually help people, because until that point in time, I viewed it as a hobby, something nice to
Right.
do on the side. But now I'm doing data stuff and it actually helps people. And that summarizes my entire career and my life's goal. I want to do good and I want to help people. What I actually can do is data and talk about
Mm-hmm.
it. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to do good with data.
How did that went?
Well, now I'm on your podcast, so that's obviously the pinnacle of my whole career. Um, no, but seriously, back then people were asking why big data, why statistics. That's not that's not going to get you money until all the businesses started building Hadoop platforms. But
Right.
now 1 in 3 jobs in the
Mm-hmm.
Western labor market is in IT. So my son does something with computers really doesn't cover the load anymore, because 1 in 3 persons of working age is working in IT, and that field is only set to grow from here on
Yeah.
out.
Mm-hmm.
So I
100%.
lucked out basically as a social scientist in the field of data science. And now it's
Nice.
AI. I don't know what happened, man. It's just one buzzword after another. But like my name, I'll let you call it whatever you like, honey.
Let's do this. Awesome. Thank you so much for that background. I'm a big fan of the word AI. As a matter of fact, now like the podcast is called Let's Talk AI,
I noticed.
and I have an identity crisis. So I don't know.
Don't rebrand into Let's Talk Gen AI, please.
How would you rebrand it though? Like what
No, no,
would you
no.
name it?
I'm just cutting in. Don't rebrand it. Let's Talk Gen AI, please, for the love of God. Now, do continue. What were you gonna say?
Awesome. I was about to ask about Capgemini. So with all your experience and your mission to help and do something bigger, uh, how did you start it in Capgemini? And maybe like what is your current drive, your current mission, value? Um, I like to call it your state of the art, basically.
Good question. As a young professional back then, because that was the start of my career, I joined Capgemini as a data scientist, but I
Mm-hmm.
went up to senior managing now. Um, Nobody told me this at the start, but as a consultant, so in the field of consultancy, you get to do so much. In my very
Mm-hmm.
first year over there, I was at one bank, then international bank, so I had to work abroad, a journalistic place, a Dutch government, and I could
Mm-hmm.
have, in my career, just worked for all of those four separately. It would take me about 4 years. Instead, I did that all at once, the speed run
Mm-hmm.
version, which is a higher learning curve. Let me put it that way. But it also gives you so much more experience, so much faster, and you can
Right.
grow so much more to figure out what you like, what you're actually good at, which is something different, and where the coffee doesn't suck.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And what's the answer? What's the answer to the last one?
Oh, this is very simple. The worst coffee I've ever had in my life from an employer was at the Dutch police.
Okay.
But help me
Okay.
analyze crime, Rotterdam drug crime, which is huge. To
Oh.
keep my own city safe is one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Okay.
On the other hand, the best damn coffee I've ever had was at a big green Dutch bank. Amazing
Mm.
coffee, but mortgages just really didn't do it for me. So, based on this sample size of 2, I can statistically validly tell you that the worse the coffee, the more fun the work.
I don't buy that rule. I have outliers. I have outliers from your rule.
Outliers confirm the rule, they do not reject it.
Exactly.
This
Love
is not
it.
a black swan argument.
I love it. There is a saying about when people overemphasize outliers, it's not a good thing for the common good. But it's also a good
distribution.
confirmation of the rule.
Like
Amazing.
people cite averages, and as statistical person, I hate it when people cite averages because it tells you nothing about the distribution. But when we're citing, but outlier, well, outliers also tell you nothing about the distribution.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Love
moment I show somebody management a normal distribution, they basically ran away. So
it.
pick your battles.
Nice. Pick your battles. All right. I'd like to ask you about your favorite. So two things. And this is like I like to do maps that you kind of decide which way to go. So first decision to do is would you like to talk about your favorite project that you've realized? You don't need to name the client nor where you are working, but like the things that most excited you to work on and why. And I'd like to dive deeper onto that. Or uh,
Or
would you could you share maybe more of your um social impact with your skills and what you're trying to achieve on that side? Which route do you want to take? It doesn't mean that the other route will not appear next.
why not both?
Let's do both. Let's go.
So some of the biggest projects I've worked on, and end of the day, I want to help people, and I do data because I'm good at data. So some of the coolest things I've ever done is work at Dutch governments and set up projects abroad to help NGOs, partially through Capgemini, which is where I combine the technical expertise and the social impact parts. If you can Google Project Farm, Capgemini, you'll find it. That's something I initiated with the most terrible abbreviation ever: Financial and Agricultural Recommendation Models, FARM, where we basically built an app for your phone for farmers in Kenya and later India to help analyze and track what to plant, yield, how to make safer financial decisions, bunch of different types of advice. And I learned so much through those projects. Like, you're talking with a farmer in the field, he's saying what's good and bad about the app. Then you realize he can't read because he keeps asking his son what's on the screen. And the kid, bless him, can read because literacy rates amongst children really went up. But every time he needs to read something, he asks his son. So it's the whole family helping out. But then he is telling me about what's wrong on the app, and I'm just quietly writing down bigger pictures on app. And then he starts bragging about the size of his plot, and we realize there's no way that plot is actually 5 hectares. That's more like 3-ish. So we have to compensate for the male tendency to, overestimate sizes. And I was like, I was not preparing for that kind of conversation. Then we tried to double check that by tracking plot sizes based on satellite footage.
I was about to ask. Awesome.
With mixed results. But for me,
Awesome.
it was just the initial, oh wait, I have to deal with this. And the computer scientist was like, what do you mean it's not correct? Well, basic psychology, males, it's a male thing. They're just over bragging and I'm going like, I was not expecting this as part of the project, but this you have to deal with. Technology is never the problem. Humans are. And legacy. Well, I studied humans for 4 years. Then I was mainly disappointed in humans. But I've done other things. I've done analyze burnouts, track attrition. I've helped solve gender pay gap issues for companies, which is all stuff to, help people. But then I'm in a team with 4 computer scientists, and HR comes in and asks, so is your algorithm discriminating? And they panic. And I'm like, hey, I studied this. Complaining about discrimination. That's me. I can do this. Because I was never as good at coding as some of the computer scientists, or as good as doing deep learning as some of the people who specialize in that. I can't optimize. I can optimize the hell out of a linear regression algorithm because that's methods and statistics. But the point is that as a data scientist, you don't have to be able to do anything. There's coding, there's statistics, and there's a field in which you apply. And you can excel at one of the two. You can be pretty good at the second. Just don't suck at the third, because you'll be in a team with different disciplines who can do different things. And for me, that is the coolest part of working in the field in data science. I'm in a team with a mathematician, an econometrician thing, a theoretical neuroscientist guy, and the one who did psychology. And the one who did astronomy. I think it was astronomy or astrology, but he gets angry at me when he mixes them up. Anyway, we all see different problems because we have different backgrounds. We see different solutions, but that's why together we can establish way better solutions than back in the early days of data science, when the solution of any company was to just hire 4-5 guys who did computer science, stick them in a room, add data, lock the door, and wait for magic to happen. But they didn't have engineers, they didn't have business analysts, they didn't have people who do UX or visualization, nobody to take care of the cloud hosting. There was no cloud hosting back then. So you're setting people up to fail if you don't have a multitude of different skills. And that's why I would like to work in this field, because I can learn so much from so many different people. Even when we add the word AI to all the fields, because now it's AI engineer, now it's AI designer, and AI God knows what. But the point is that you keep developing and you keep learning if you work with people who know stuff that you do not. And that is what I like about my field, our field.
Amazing. Amazing. Uh, uh, there are multiple things, but I really enjoy working with extremely talented people that do things that I don't know how to do. And so, yeah, I always try. I think we all have one skill that maybe is over the others, and the idea is to double down on that. But along the way, learning and working with people, we discover new skills that we might like even more, that we can learn very fast.
It's not about having one thing or one skill that's where you're better at than anyone else, because there's always another mother fluffer who's better at that one thing. So over optimizing and putting all your skill points into one stat, that's a terrible strategy on the labor market.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make yourself unique. And you don't do that by getting a higher high score at a Kaggle challenge, though
Mm-hmm.
massive respect if you reach a high score. More important is to just participate in it and add it to your repertoire of skill sets of things. Again, I am a social scientist in a very quantitative technical field, but that means I can really work on the ethical issues, the bias, the discrimination, all of that. And then I just lucked out because suddenly that became huge in the field a few years later. But in the same way, please find your own niche and don't compete on doing the same things with other people, but focus on what other people cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what makes you you.
Yeah. And also like the idea of just trying to be better against yourself and like not trying to match. I mean, some people can inspire you to certain standards or like motivate you, but in the end, comparing yourself to your previous self seems to be the easier way. Any thought?
Your only true rival is the person you were yesterday and the person you can be tomorrow.
Who said that?
I don't know.
You.
Just making it up.
You said it. I'll post that on LinkedIn. I'll post that on Twitter, and I'll
Deal,
name you.
deal.
Awesome. Yeah, and there is another quote that I really like, which is you overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you can do in 10, which goes along with the other one. Awesome.
10
Oh,
years ago, deep learning was just becoming a thing. ChatGPT didn't exist. Businesses were just sniffing at deep learning and stuff back then, but their backend was still all Excel, and that's the one thing that hasn't changed because the backend
yeah.
of many companies still Excel. So let me quote Tupac for you here. My mama told me there'd be days like this, but I'm pissed because it stays like this.
Nice.
And we overestimate the changes of technology and new stuff, new stuff. But technology is not the problem. Legacy is. Old technology, old thinking that's holding the new stuff back. 10 years ago, no, 12 years ago, we unleashed deep learning with the Atlas NVIDIA GPU, and people going like, oh, we can run neural nets on GPUs. Wow. But neural nets had existed for decades already at that time. It's just nobody added the compute from video games to it seriously. And in the same way, we've had transformers for a while. GPT-2. I played AI Dungeon back in the day. You might remember Microsoft chatbot Tay that learned to learned to be a very controversial Twitter bot back in the day. Well, that's 2016. That was a precursor of modern LLMs today. It is not about the new tech that's pushing us forward. It's about the old tech that's holding us back. But that's not nearly as sexy. So instead, we're obsessing and fantasizing over what if LLMs do everything for you, while our whole cloud data stack, whatever, is still full of legacy. And then we're stuck. You see so many companies now obsessing over, if we leverage all our own data and connect it to our version of a GPT model, then we can query everything. Yes, but do you have all your data in an easily accessible knowledge graph-like structure? No, because you didn't do that stuff for a decade, and now you're stuck. That means more business for my company, so it's all good. But this is the real struggle, short versus long-term investment in getting rid of old tech. And I can talk for 2 hours about this.
Let's do it. There is the AI engineer conference going on right now. And I think that one of the speech that I've heard, I think it was coming from LinkedIn people. And it was like basically the end game of Gen AI is that you don't even need to go through the architecturing and consolidating your data and making everything clean. The AI will just go and figure things out.
But then you will have to check if they did it right. And that's the real game changer here in terms of LLMs, because any fool can generate a PhD level answer, article, or whatever if they know how to prompt. But that doesn't mean they can judge it on criteria or interpret it, because they themselves lack that knowledge. And they'll ask, then they'll ask another model, is this model lying or whatever? You can only do that so much. You can do some with judge models, but the core point here is that information has become cheap. This is the information age, but it is not the knowledge age. Misinformation, disinformation are huge things. More on that later. But interpreting the quality of that information generated by the LLM, the complete architecture and structure for your entire company down the road. You're still going to need a human who needs to have a lot more knowledge and experience than an entry-level junior to judge the quality of that what was generated. Because at the end of the day, all Gen AI is a dice roll. And it's an extremely efficient dice roll that's better at guessing what answer you want to hear than most humans out there. But it's still a dice roll and it can be wrong. But the challenge is not, but it can be wrong. The challenge is, will it be more or less wrong than a human? Because damn, humans also make mistakes. But in my entire career, I've so often see the model represent something that was actually the human's fault in terms of burnouts caused by specific managers, or policy actually totally failed here and screwed over some people, or oh man, these people are not going to get fed, because I mainly talk about heavy data topics because that's where I want to be. That's where I can make the biggest difference for people as well. But because I'm in those sectors, and then I show through data and models that humans fluffed up, then they blame the model, because it's so much easier for man to blame the machine than to admit their own mistakes. So if human fluffs up, they blame the machine. And if the machine fluffs up, also blame the machine. End of the day, we spend a lot of time blaming things other than ourselves, when at the end, all that false data or bad behavior is generated by us.
Nice. We are the consequence of our bias.
Of our own actions? Yes. Actions. The topic of bias triggers me, because there is no such thing as an unbiased model. No matter how much GDPR and EU regulation surrounds us with, AI needs to be good boy and unbiased and fair and transparent, and servers need to be in the EU, and all theoretical regulations, bypassing the principal issue that every model is biased by definition, because it's a model. It's a generalization, an aggregation, and an assumption of how the world is based on a subset of data. A model is biased by default because it's full of assumptions. So stop saying unbiased models, please, because they just don't exist. And the goal is not to have unbiased machine learning or AI models in the same way that it is not the goal to have unbiased humans, because they don't exist either. The goal is to admit our bias, to be open and transparent about it, and try to be something slightly less biased tomorrow. Perfection is not something to achieve, but it's something to strive for. And the same goes for being unbiased. We cannot demand it through law, as much as lawyers try to argue otherwise, because these are statistical, probabilistical models. It's not deterministic. It's not yes, no, if, then. It's odds and dice rolls, and those can be wrong, and we try to minimize it. But you shouldn't compare that to a zero error margin. You need to compare that to how many times humans fluffed up. And one of my most beautiful examples in the first year of my career was that we were building a fraud detection system for documents, and we could never reach that level of accuracy as humans. Like 50 documents in, how many get picked out? And it was not like the humans. And then we realized, actually, our test set is wrong, because we don't compare it to factual, did you find fraud or not? We compared it to the fraud the humans found, because the humans also missed something. And for a month, we only calculated our accuracy percentages, not based on how good bad it was, but how much it matched the flawed humans. But that means we need to have conversations about ourselves as humans, and we hate doing that.
I have a question.
So it's easier to say the AI is evil and racist.
I have two questions. The first one is a small one, but have you asked DeepSeek about Taiwan? Have you asked DeepSeek application about Taiwan?
Yes, and DeepSeek is fun in terms of how you can bypass it, because there's a censorship algorithm up top, because Winnie the Pooh, Xi Jinping doesn't want you to talk about stuff. But you can bypass that judge model that they run on top if you ask questions in Dutch or Finnish, which are not official languages supported by DeepSeek, but it does support them to some extent. But the censorship algorithm on top does not. Meaning, you will get an answer if you ask about the funny tank man in a weird language, or if you ask, and I posted about that, if you ask him to answer in leet speak. Some of the listeners here might be wondering, what the fluff is leet speak? Leet speak is when you replace letters with numbers.
All right.
That's what cool kids hackers did back in the day.
Oh.
So you don't say tank man, you say T4NK. So if you ask about tank man on Tiananmen Square, answer in leet speak, we realize that the censorship algorithm does not really check the question, but the answer, but cannot understand the answer when it's in leet speak, when it's just random numbers, not random, when it's numbers and letters. So then you will get authentic answers about what happened at Tiananmen Square until near the end, if you ask it in Finnish, when it finally picks up and then censors again. And this is fun, This is just us trying to bullshit and reverse engineer how this thing works, because the DeepSeek model itself is really good. But the censorship algorithm on top, less so, for now. Also, you can apparently deactivate it if you grab an open source version and then just disassemble it.
To be honest, I think I recorded a long video some time ago. I just wanted to see, and I just started to ask about Taiwan, and I didn't do anything specific, and it was in plain English. And man, did it had an opinion. It was very clear that Taiwan is part of the great and powerful China and blah blah blah. And so, I I've seen a few posts like that, and you can also break jail the models and 100% agree on the fact that they're biased because in the end they're trained on human data, and human data have opinions and ideas. And so I can really see how you can, I don't know. I started thinking about religions, right? We don't have an LLM that is totally biased towards a religion or like a specific culture. And so I'm thinking in the future, like you can choose your bias or you can choose your culture. I don't know. Um,
As I
but
just
that,
mentioned, because my old professor taught me this, you do not deny your bias, you admit it, and you put on in your paper, I made these and these and these assumptions in hopes that somebody else who reads your paper can go like, oh, this assumption was wrong and this one is right, and builds upon that. It's something we should admit, not deny. I'm a white Dutch guy and I'm talking about colonialism in Europe. I am very much opinionated and biased about a lot of the stuff I write because I have friends in Ukraine, so I care that they get bombed. I also know people in Syria. I also know some dudes from Taiwan. I know some dudes from Sudan. I have opinions on all of that. So I am biased, but that's not something that I should try to hide because that's what the other side is doing. And we have elections coming up in on Sunday, right? In
mm-hmm,
Germany elections. Twitter is going crazy right now. Why? Because one party over there, AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, which is just so happens to be friends with Russia, um, are scoring twice as high as every other political party on X, on Twitter. For some reason, they're in everyone's feed twice as often as every other party. This is because Elon Musk is just tweaking the algorithm, just like over the last half year, he tweaked the algorithm so that he himself would appear more often in people's feeds. This is a form of electoral interference that we're just not ready for because our legislation is ancient compared to this. But, and here's the thing, there's also dozens, if not hundreds or thousands, of fake users who are spamming in German, on Twitter, stuff about how Merz is a bad person, how he's selling the world out, about how he's injecting children with COVID, which is also fake. God knows what. But the interesting thing is that they systematically misspell Merz, his name, the candidate, with a T. There is no T in his name. But you do get that if you translate the message from Russian to German. So all of these bots are basically showing their bias that they're bots, that they're not real persons saying this, not just because they use auto-generated images. They all have 4 to 6 letters behind their name. Nobody likes them, and their accounts were all made a few days ago. But simply because they misspell the name of the person they're shit talking systematically. And they do not admit bias of any kind. They pretend to be real persons, even though 20% of most social media is bots, if not more. But we can be better than that, and that's why we should admit to our assumptions, our background, our bias, and not deny it and pretend to be, I don't know, a guy from Texas, even though there's still a Russian flag in your name, or pretend to be a black woman, even though your profile picture is still white. Also seen that happen. Or just break down halfway through a conversation because your OpenAI starts giving you API starts giving you errors. We've
mm-hmm,
seen all of that. Our internet right now is full of Gen AI bots all over our social media pretending to be authentic humans. And we
mm-hmm,
don't fight that by just enacting legislation that says you cannot be evil AI bots. Just like we can't say just be evil, don't be evil. Google actually removed the don't be evil guideline. What does that mean?
mm-hmm,
We don't make this world better by just telling people what to do, but by
mm-hmm.
setting the right example. And the first step of that is being better than those mother fluffers by actually being open and being honest about things.
Hmm.
Also, I'm
I
very
really,
curious what Germany will look like by the time this podcast is released.
that's fascinating, and I totally see in the application how just better models, like people might worry about jobs and might worry about AGI and robotics, and they're going to kill us. But the real thing that already exists, and that with compute and with the right, like enough resources, the misinformation can really. Yeah, you were about to say something. Go
Yeah, you
ahead.
want me to talk about killer AI or about jobs?
I
Stolen
want
by AI.
to both, and also I want to understand from all the projects that you've been doing, how you quantify the impact that you had, and like how, like I would like to do a bit of a deep dive into, because there are two fun words. So adding to those 2 points, there is the classical machine learning, and then there is Gen AI, and I'm curious about your vision on Gen AI unlocked new use cases. So let's start with the 2 points. We'll get back.
No. You gave me 4 points. I'm going to do this backwards. So, first of all,
Cool.
transparent versus untransparent models. Um, why do we joke that 90% of AI in production is just linear regression? Because linear regression is explainable, transparent, like random forest. And you can actually say, okay, you're going to get burnout. Why? Instead of just computer says you're going to get burnout, which really does not help when HR tells you that like that, believe me. So there's a big there's pre and post. There is explaining the model in advance, and then there is retroactively explaining why this individual forecast gave you this numbers. There's no good bad here. These are just different dimensions that we as data professionals need to keep in mind when we're designing and building a solution. Because our job is not to go, okay, you told me to build and to train this neural net. Our job is to figure out whether the fluff you need a neural net or linear regression or some weird Cosmo DB thing hooked up to ChatGPT. It's our job to figure out what you need and then build that. And that's the fun part because that's just Legos for professionals, you know? But we need to talk about the different pros and cons because, yes, XGBoost will be more accurate, but slightly harder to maintain and less easy to explain. These are all trade offs. There's only trade offs. But I think our field is all about, multiple inputs and using statistics and data to quantify those trade offs. So the answer to the question is in our field itself. Then you, in non-chronological order, you asked about killer AI, and we're legislating. Oh yeah, killer AI bad. In theory, in practice, my friends in Ukraine, because I know a few and I fundraise for them and stuff, are already done with killer AI drones. Why? Because a few years ago, I was using a Google Coral with a friend of mine over here to run real-time OpenCV on his front door to get a classification of, oh, somebody's at your door. But it kept giving me false positives because there was a seagull and it thought the seagull was a person. So that was localized image recognition, fun stuff that we were doing. Nowadays, or 1-2 years ago, they started gluing those same Google Coral's GPUs to an explosive FPV drone. So they could run OpenCV V8 on the drone so it can fly autonomously at the front line in Ukraine straight through jamming because drones are remote controlled. But if you enter an area full of jamming, you lose signal and the drone just drops down. Instead, this drone flies autonomously because it can see and detect, ooh, that's the tank. That's the damaged part of the tank. I fly into that. And then no amount of jamming, because the jammers are located inside the tanks, will be able to stop that drone from giving the tank a kissy and making the turret go fly to the moon. But this is already outdated. While the EU in 3, 4, 5 years will enact laws about, ooh, that killer AI drone bad, Ukraine is already moving away from AI controlled drones to bypass jamming and moving into fiber optic drones with fiber wires hanging from the drone for remote control. Because if it's wired, then no amount of signal jamming is going to stop it. And the Russians actually started doing this before the Ukrainians implemented it at scale because the Ukrainians bet on AI. By now, both sides are using fiber optic and are scaling it. And here comes the fun part. Now they're using AI drones, scout drones, to look at the battlefield and recognize the light reflection of those fiber optic wires because they're highly reflective, hoping to spot the wires and then cut them. So there's AI coming in as well. But meanwhile, we here in the rest of Europe are still talking about, killer AI drone bad. So not only are we one step behind, we're 5 steps behind. And that's my real worry when we talk about this. Not that it's not dangerous, and that we should talk about this, but that we talk about the theory. Our pacifism is a privilege. When the bullets start flying, you stop talking about, we need to have a group with regular meetings and a council on top and a regulatory meeting with management. Yes, with management, and we need to involve key stakeholders from all over the distribution and the industry to have a holistic view of fluff that. When people are dying, all your principles and at least half your laws go out the window. I am very unfortunately speak from experience here because I spent 3 years of my life working with refugees from war zones. And last summer I was in Ukraine and I was under a bombardment. I heard a North Korean missile explode overhead. That was quite an experience. North Korean missiles are exploding in Europe. If you told me that a few years ago, people would say, nah, that could never happen. Guess what? We already became used to it. So that's my real issue here, that our theoretical talk about applications of AI are just so far behind, not the future, not even reality, but so far behind the past. Because AI controlled killer drones were already there 1 year ago. And we're not even aware of that. You give me $300, I'm not going to do it, but you give a kid $300 worth of materials, they can build their own drone. They can ask DeepSeek how to build the drone and how to make their own bomb with chemicals and just fly that into, I don't know, the White House or something. This is not even reality now. This is already possible for years, and we are not prepared for it. So that's my real issue with these with talks about this types of technology, that we are just so far up our own you-know-what and talking about the theory, and we don't even realize that the future is already now, and it's coming for us sooner or later.
Right.
So that was 2 of the 4 topics that you asked. Then we had to take it. Yeah,
I know them.
right?
Yeah, I mean, jobs. So I think it's linked. So the two are like classical ML versus Gen AI, and the last one is about the job and the impacts that you've seen, but being a direct link to that one, not the outcomes and the results and so on. Classical machine learning versus Gen AI. You mentioned exact use case of hard power and soft power. So you can influence social media with a swan of bots and basically balance opinions of real people, even though a lot of them looks like bot, but it just changes what appears to the feed and the continuous actions on social media of people which have an impact. Would like to think of how to measure that, but the core question is, okay, we had classical machine learning and the drone, for example, computer vision, then you have classification problems, then you have regression problems, but now you can build kind of systems that can use the classical machine learning and other kind of things and reflections and can take videos and images. So how do you approach the two of them? And do you have any thoughts about Gen AI in general? And you described 2 big use cases that I really like. So if you want to share anything regarding those 2 big families and maybe where do you see things going forward, and how more impactful the technology can become because of these new capabilities.
I'm going to commit a terrible sin, which is quote myself. Because like 20, 30 minutes ago in this podcast, I said the problem is not new technology, but the old technology holding the new stuff back. We now have the Gen AI revolution happening for a few years. But why is it hard to implement for many organizations who all want their own bakery GPT, God knows what? Because RAG solutions were very popular based on your own sorted, prepared data. all the companies realize they don't have their data in order, so they can't do that. So they're stuck with the new technology because of the old stuff. And again, more business for us to help them with that. So yay. But this is the core challenge for most companies now, that they cannot adopt it to it because their unstructured data is not in order. In the same way that a decade ago they were stuck in the big data revolution when they realized that their structured data was all not in order, and it's just Excel and ancient Oracle DBs and hieroglyphics. Though I'll admit, Oracle DB, their databases is like the best Oracle product ever to this day. So they're stuck because of that. At home, I really got into 3D printing lately, and I'm trying to hook that up to my home system. Here's all my lights. You can see my lights are on. This is the temperature. This is how strong I want my coffee, because I hooked a Raspberry Pi and a Node MCU up to my coffee machine, so I can remote control it. That kind of stuff. Some other stuff. COVID ratings. If I push that button, the music goes on. My cat gets scared. This is my front door. I can say, "Computer, open the goddamn door." And if I didn't disconnect the Alexa, my door would now be open. And I am now hooking this up to my 3D printer because I want this thing on my watch to tell me that my print is ready, because I'm printing a lot these days. So I am integrating all kinds of different technology, some IoT, some Node MCU, some Raspberry Pis. But now I can print casings for my Node MCUs and my Raspberry Pi, so they don't have to collect dust anymore. So that's a huge revolution, because my Node MCU might survive for longer than 2 years now, because I can just print casings. This is like 50 cents worth of material. Yay. And I can address that from my phone and tell it to print that. So what I'm working on right now is hooking that up and to an OpenAI GPT model, so that in the context in the context of commands, I also give it access to the API of my home, including a lot of sensor feeds and stuff, so that when I say turn lights on, it won't just run the script of that's these lights, but it will actually look at all my sensors and all my lights and then flip those on. And that's really not working well right now. Yet. Damn it. But this is my metaphor that I also see a lot of clients, a lot of big industry and governments working on. It's not about, get yourself an LLM, but integrating that with all of your other stuff. Because that's where the real magic is. And that is what organizations are still very much struggling with, because their interpretation of implementing Gen AI is, we bought a Copilot subscription for half our company. So now we are Gen AI, right? I saw a company years ago give everyone an agile Scrum training for like a few hours.
I have
and
that.
They rebranded all the project managers became Scrum managers.
Yeah,
And then
Scrum
they said,
Masters.
now our organization is agile. And they gave that change manager guy a huge bonus end of the year. While de facto nothing changed. The definition of change should not be relabeling stuff, but changing the way we work. And that brings me to your last question about jobs. Good. How many times a day do you use Google?
Many times, too much. I have no clue.
Can you imagine with working without Google?
No.
Or using DuckDuckGo or whatever. But my point here is, we take it for granted now, but 25 years ago, companies were shit-talking Google like we should ban this because they steal our corporate data. In the same way they now talk about OpenAI because it was new. But it was also very useful. In fact, it was so useful that we adopted it, and Googling became an integrated part of our everyday lives, to the extent that we can't even imagine our world without it, or without Netflix, or without Spotify. This is why Google is the most successful piece of AI in human history, because everyone uses it every day, and we don't even realize it anymore. We don't even call it AI anymore. We don't even call it search engine anymore, because search engines were cutting-edge AI in the 90s. Now we just call it Googling, because it got its own word. Now look at your typewriter, look at your laptop, look at the calculator. Back when I was young, they uninstalled autocorrect on the computers in my on my school, so the kids would learn to spell because they would get lazy if the machine would do the spelling for them. Nowadays, you can't even imagine working without autocorrect because it just takes too much time to do everything by hand. Doing all the math by in your brain would also take too much time. My handwriting is terrible, believe me. But all of these things, from typewriters to calculators to autocorrect to Google to now a thing that can rewrite my trash talking for business purposes, they make us more efficient. They make us more productive, way more than when we didn't have radio and electricity and the steam engine. And that enables us to create other jobs. Look at all your mother fluffers in the marketing department, in the business department, in the accounting department, in the management department. We didn't have all of those jobs at that proportions and levels back when we still had to crank engines by hand because we didn't have steam engines. So, yes, in the mid-long term, jobs don't disappear. We get more jobs. In the short term, yes, some jobs get automated and disappear, but new ones are created. The real discussion we should be having, that I often lack in this discourse, is about how we deal with the people at the micro level, the individuals who struggle to keep up with that technology and their changing jobs and their changing fields. Because I am more than convinced that next generations will still all have jobs because we create new jobs all the time as well. But that's at the macro level. At the micro level, I have questions for, like, my own mom is a grade school teacher, but she was really struggling in the last few years because she had to fill everything in on a computer, and she doesn't understand computers. That's why she calls me, and she couldn't keep up with that. That is what we should be talking about, not about, oh, robots going to take all our jobs. Because, man, I've read fiction from the 50s that talks, and 80s, Neuromancer, that talks about that way better.
I love that book.
Than whatever the heck the current day influencers are saying. But then again, saying we're all going to shit and it's all going to be terrible gets you so much more attention than it's all going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And that's modern journalism and news forecasting in a nutshell.
Awesome. I would have. So I'm very curious about one thing. Jobs. Like you said, we're in a bubble. I think that because we're data professionals, we forget that some people don't know what ChatGPT is, and there are a lot of people who don't know about ChatGPT and an even bigger number of people don't know what an LLM is or what it stands for. And the other day, I helped someone write an email on paper, like a professional email, to confirm an appointment, something that an AI can easily do for me. Or I helped another person just with the keyboard and how the computer work, and because they're trying to get up to speed, and just to emphasize your point about when transition technology should also give ways for people to follow the change, and this is even more possible with the latest advancements in technology. But sometimes, like you said, I can build the best application in the world if someone can't read. How the heck is this person going to make sense of my very nice, well-positioned custom button that I thought about, and with a clear call to action and a specific font that he will have no clue what to do?
And we
So yeah,
over-obsess over the technology, and we nerd out over that because it is so cool, and it is
which
so
I love.
cool.
I love it. I love
But
it.
adoption by normies will
Yeah.
only occur if it's easy for them and if they give it a try. I've done a lot of talks and workshops on getting people to adopt new ways of working, and one of my most successful ones was actually not me talking. Please just shut up. But just giving everyone in the room the command to grab their laptops, subscribe to OpenAI, and do an exercise.
put your
Yeah.
card, and then you get a.
No, the free subscription thing, of course. But I just gave them a few assignments that they had to do: write a business email, check this thing from a colleague, find the problem with this thing
Right.
piece of text. And when I
Yeah.
forced them, almost at gunpoint, to use it, then they realized, this is actually really handy. And
Yeah.
that's also how we created that adoption, by taking their hand and letting them, oh no, horse scary, take hand, pet horse. Oh, actually, horse, doggy is animal is nice. I didn't adopt smartphones. I had a Nokia back in the day until somebody told me, man, you could emulate Game Boy games on this thing. And then within a week, I had a smartphone as a kid. So
Incentives, right?
it's also about communication and about being human and relating to the other person. And
Yeah.
I think those are, for now, still things that humans pretty much also need to do to some extent. You can't hug a computer yet. I mean, the robo waifus are on their way, but they're just not there yet, man.
Yeah, not yet. Expected
Not
though.
yet.
Big market.
Very big market. I know Japan is working on it.
Yeah. No, super. I think that's very true and very important to keep in mind. And I think that AI in the midterm, long term will really be able to help on that transition. Like, just, hey, look, because even though, for example,
Tool.
just taking the number, or like the example before of the writing a mail, right? It wasn't the first time I was helping that person, and I've shown that person multiple times ChatGPT and just show how ChatGPT would solve it instead of me. But this person comes back to me, and I show again ChatGPT, and again the person comes back to me. So it's like there is a learning curve too, depending on the background, and so yeah, AI
We
will
have
help with
to
that.
accept that some people want to learn and others do not. I frequently write about misinformation, but last week I did, in a discussion, I had a realization that being misinformed is a right. Free speech allows for people to think different things, think that things that may be wrong. It is a right to be misinformed. But, here's the but, there are limits to that. If there's a fire alarm, and you know there is a fire, you've seen it, you have data, you saw it with your own damn eyes, you run into the next room, fire alarm, there's a dude screaming, no, there's no fire, everyone stay inside the building, there's no fire. And you know that is untrue. What do you do with that person who is misinformed, that is affecting others?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I just say whoever wants to leave, follow me, and I just leave the room.
Whoever wants to believe me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the issue here is individual responsibility versus collective responsibility. Because if this building is on fire and there's a ton of people in there, and that guy is going against the narrative, and people will be going against objective truth, and people will be hurt because of this, I'll punch the guy or whatever, or drag him out myself, or drag him towards the fire to see it or something. But I have to address this because I have individual responsibility
Right.
towards collective safety. And that is we don't all need to have the same opinion on this, but I want us to have the discussion about this, because misinformation is not just individual right, because it is individual right. You get to have your opinions, but only to the extent that it does not actively harm the collective. And you can have different opinions on different degrees. Different countries have different laws on this. Like we have totalitarian state where everything is for the common good. And we are a democracy. North Korea claims to be a democracy, but you can only vote for one guy who's the son of the previous guy, who's the son of the previous guy. But it's all for the collective. That is bad. But absolute individualism, anarchy, also bad. And the question to us is just, where on that gradient are we? And I saw something beautiful last time I was in Ukraine. And my Ukrainian is terrible because it's limited to swear words, basically.
Okay.
But a lady explained to me that in Ukrainian, there is no your kid or my kid. There's just there's just children.
Okay.
Because they view it as a collective responsibility, and it is reflected in in the
Right.
language itself. Because it's not about, oh, that's your kid, I don't care. No, we all take care of the kids. And
Yeah.
it sounds stupid, like theory, just like in the EU, we talk about the theory, but when the air alarm is sounding
Mm.
and there are Shaheds and missiles coming in, then holy moly, yes, everyone should take care of the kids. That is a collective responsibility we should all account for. Well,
Yeah.
the house on fire metaphor is the same, but our democracy and our society is also on fire. And I
Mm-hmm.
would like us to have these discussions about to what level should individual rights versus collective well-being or harm. That should be our discussion, not black white, yes, no, this good, this bad, this right absolutism. Because we as data persons know it is not black white, it is not 0-1, it is not deterministic.
Yeah.
All of this is odds, probabilistic. But for that, we will first need to educate our society more about what the heck is a percentage. So we have a
Mm-hmm.
long road ahead of us for that, but it also means we will have jobs for decades to come.
Let's go. I'll just clip that out, right? This will be your campaign. Uh, it is something that made me think about. It's like trying to understand the compounding effect, like on your finances. Like just putting, like let's suppose that S&P 500 will keep trading at a 15% rate annually, blah blah blah. It is very hard to explain that concept, and even more like if you don't have specific like fundamentals, right?
If
Or
people
just
were
like
good at math and statistics, we wouldn't have this many lotteries or
okay.
bitcoins for that matter.
Uh-huh. Oh, I would ask about your thoughts about Beacon, but I want to ask you about uh, one main question before I wrap up into maybe some advice that you would have for people entering the field and people more advanced. Which is you've worked on so many cool projects that directly impact lives of people. Which, if you get wrong a regression model for a bank, I mean, maybe you'll allow them to make less money, but what you get wrong on a model that solve hunger in the world, yeah, it hits different. Uh, we always, as humans, have a tendency to be shocked by what's around us, and we don't. We are like it's a bit hypocritic in a way because there are a lot of things happening in the world, but something happened to that person in my neighborhood, and so
Then we
we
care.
have like we're biased, and I think that's in our ADN, DNA, sorry, ADN in Espanol. Okay, so my question to you is, with that
How do you
said,
deal with that?
uh, with the hypocrisy and things like that.
Uh, Let me put it this way, because I had said before, I want to deal with serious topics. People run away from the things I write about. Some people are offended
Yeah,
just by me speaking, which I totally get because, I do tend to swear a lot. Because I talk about hunger, I talk about war, I talk
yeah.
about dirt poor farmers who can barely feed their own children. So I also talk about starving children. That's messed up. People don't like that. People walk
Yeah.
away. Or, oh, that's unprofessional. I'm like, no, that's part of my profession, and that's where I want to be, because that's where
Mm-hmm.
I can make the biggest difference for people's lives with data and with AI, way more than helping a banker earn slightly more. And yes, we too get things wrong over there, because every data project gets things wrong. From, oh, I'm sorry, I swapped the 0 and 1. How does that affect the results? Well, that means the results are the reverse, and we already communicated this to management. Very, very awkward feeling. Um, to we didn't know data inputs changed because they brag less about plot sizes now. The entire COVID happened, so your entire model for forecasting people moving across countries just ended because they closed the borders. Your model is worthless now. They changed the football match, so your prediction about how much beer is going to be sold changes. Because yes, we need open data and football matches to do forecasts accurate forecasts for sales in retail. All of that can go wrong. But that's why they need us, and that is part of our profession. Doing it properly, doing it diligently, and learning from other professions, learning a little bit from cybersecurity, where they do not do happy flow, everything will be right. No, cybersecurity is all about not if, but when things go wrong, because things will break and be hacked and cracked, and people will upload their passwords into GPT. And then what? So part of our job in our modeling, in our analysis, is also to account for what if we're wrong. My teachers, my professors would slap me if in my paper I did not account for what if this assumption is wrong. Well, then that. What if that assumption in my model is wrong? Well, then that. I still do that today. And I am frightened by how many of our colleagues do not, because we could be wrong. We should never stop assuming we could be wrong. And I'm very scared about that myself, because I write about misinformation so much. And sometimes I have to go back and delete my post because I realized it was wrong. But that too is what separates us from the propagandists. The fact that we admit that we run on assumptions and that we could be wrong. To quote Garry Kasparov, a Russian oppositionist, the world chess champion who got beaten by IBM Deep Blue, the first chess AI. I admired him since the chess playing. Then he switched the AI. Now he's in politics. People can arrive independently at the same truth, but they cannot arrive independently at the same lie. And that, to me, is the easiest way to recognize misinformants who do not talk about their assumptions, their biases, and about them being wrong, but who just parrot the same things that we also saw the Kremlin say. Unfortunately, one of those people is now the president of the USA.
Little plug. Awesome. I like the fact that you really speak your model of the reality as it grows, and as you are optimizing for your for what matters the most, and you're extremely driven, passionate, and I mean all of this in a good way and in good good intentions, and you communicate a lot and you really care about others, about the community, and about learning and the truth. I would like to ask you, if someone's listening right now, two things. Maybe if you have advice for people who are starting in the field, one, and second, if they want to start in the field but also have an impact. Maybe they don't want to go on Kaggle and like train on whatever Titanic data set or something. They want to try to help learn from people like you, and maybe participate to World Hunger or any other causes that you can think of. What could you share around that?
So for the newbies out there, or the young people starting, there is hope. They gave me a job, so they will surely, somebody will give you a job too. Even though my dad directly told me I was never going to get a job like this. He was wrong. And I've built most of my career on proving people wrong, people's assumptions, people's explanations, people's disinformation. Just don't let all that frustration of proving them wrong get to the head of you. Our field progresses so fast. Data science trainings and education just literally didn't exist back in my day when I started out. I have no clue what they'll call all of us in 4 or 5 years from now, though I do not look forward to the buzzwords. Okay, I kind of do. I'm curious now. But the point is, all of this tech progress is so fast, evolves so fast, that good luck. You can't even plan ahead 5 to 10 years. Though I had this beautiful conversation with like defense people. Oh yeah, our 5-year plan. Like, okay, dude, you don't have time for a 5-year plan. It's gonna happen sooner. That you as an individual also shouldn't be focusing on which of these 10 Pokemons do I become? just pick one and go do something. I do projects now because of papers I happened to write during my study 8 or 10 years ago. Do projects, get a 3D printer, get some sensors and hook your coffee machine up to the internet or something. All of that is projects, is valuable work experience. I am frustrated by the amount of people who have all the Pokemon badges, 50 different trainings, blah, blah, but zero actual experience in any of those things. Because it's experience that hires you in the day. I screwed up my intake back in the day for the first 50 minutes because I was nervous as heck. Then he asked me, okay, so what did you do for your thesis? And 15 minutes later, I was done talking about how you can pretty much analyze how many people get stabbed in which part of the city based on how many kids play outside.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, wow, that's data science. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, man.
And I only got that job because of my experience. Not because I did all the trainings, not because of my degrees, not because of the people who all liked and subscribed to me on LinkedIn, like and subscribe, but because of my authentic story of stuff I had done and experienced, and I had lived experience for that.
Yeah.
So please, your hobby projects count. Yes, your Kaggle things count. The hackathons you participated in count. The school projects you did count, and all of those things together make you. So don't focus on one of those things being better at the than anyone else, but focus on the unique niche combination that make you unique and cool on this market, because that's where you will be competing on with the computers and the AI automation things as well. Don't focus on the things that make you a machine. Focus on the things that make you human. And end of the day, I just want to make my parents proud. If I talk to my mom, I don't talk about our KPIs or that we had this sales target. I tell my mom about that. I'm helping build models that help feed kids. And sometimes we as organizations get lost in the whole OKR, KPI, huzzbuzz. And I just want to help people, man. And I happen to do that using computers. And the rest of the career just happened by accident. And now I'm here talking to you online across on the other side of Europe through a combination of this weird camera and this light thing, because that's what influencers have these days. And there's so much technology running right now with so much logistics and parts sourced from all over the world just so we can have this conversation and record this damn podcast. And when we have so much technology at our disposal, especially in our Gen AI revolution right now, do you know what industry was affected and changed the most by Gen AI? Porn. The porn industry did a 180 thanks to Gen AI and generated images. What the heck, people? If we have this technology, all this stuff, and it can do so much for so many people, why are we using it just for porn when we could use it to help save lives and improve the lives of people all over this world? So yes, I am frustrated. Yes, I'm mad. But that is also my motivation that keeps me going. Peace out.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that vision and for inspiring us. I hope that, and I'm sure that some people out there will resonate with you, and you're genuine, you're honest, and yeah, I love all the society, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, to share and learn in public, and not being afraid to be wrong, expressing yourself as you see things. And yeah, would you have one last word or somewhere where people should follow you? I know that you're very active on LinkedIn. Is there other places that people should take into account?
Right now, I'm mainly active on LinkedIn, the one platform where you can't monetize your followers. So I chose poorly. You can also find me running all over the Netherlands, telling stories, because they say this in Germany: do good work and talk about it. Because if you don't talk about the amazing work you do, people won't know, and they can't appreciate you for it nor reward you for it.
Yeah.
So please keep telling your stories, the things that you do, because what are we if not the stories we tell?
Man, that's beautiful. Adapt yourself, learn through projects, learn in public, fail, adapt, learn in public, fail, adapt, success, adapt, fail, adapt, success.
We
Have fun.
fail upwards, you know?
Uh-huh.
That's what we do. Our first
Yeah.
model is always terrible, and the first data set is also always terrible. But our goal is not to reach perfection or to be right, as much as I like being right. Our goal is simply to be less wrong.
Thank you, Marijn, for coming on the
You
show.
too.
And I wish you
Take
to have
care,
an amazing
everyone.
day.
Cheers.